Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something right now. Your life can change, not in a year, not in a decade. I'm talking about 7 days. 7 days of real commitment, real focus, and real faith. See, you've been living with the same excuses, carrying the same weight, dragging the same fears, and wondering why nothing's different. You've been waiting on a sign, waiting on the perfect time. Well, what if I told you this is the sign? This moment right here is the start. You don't need permission to get better. You need a decision. The first step to transformation is making a decision you will no longer live the same way. Nothing changes until something changes, and that something is always you. A decision is not a feeling, it's not a mood, and it's not a vibe. It's a firm, clear commitment in your soul that says, I refuse to stay here. Most people wait for motivation, wait for circumstances to improve, or wait for the pain to disappear before they take action. But that moment rarely comes. Transformation starts when you reach a point where you're tired of your own excuses. You stop blaming your upbringing, your boss, your ex, your family, your education, your luck, and you realize the only person that can shift your life forward is the person you see in the mirror. You don't need a rescue team. You need a decision. There comes a time where you have to draw the line and say, from this moment on, I'm moving different. That's when the change begins. It's not overnight. It's not glamorous. It's often invisible at first. But internally, something snaps into place and your mind becomes your new battlefield. You start questioning your old habits. You stop tolerating what used to drain you. You become sensitive to time, energy, focus. You stop allowing your emotions to run the show and start living with intention. That's the power of a decision. When you decide, really decide, you remove the option of retreat. You burn the boats. You say, either I become the person I was born to be, or I keep pretending everything is fine. And once you remove the option to stay the same, growth becomes the only way forward. A real decision is the difference between wishing and becoming. It's not just saying you want to lose weight, start a business, fix your marriage, get closer to God. It's following that statement with action, consistency, and sacrifice. People think transformation is about circumstances. It's not. It's about clarity. Once your mind shifts, your life follows. And that mental shift comes from deciding you've had enough. Enough settling, enough waiting, enough going in circles, enough playing small to make other people comfortable. When that level of conviction kicks in, it's like waking up from a dream. You realize your power. You understand that your time is limited, your potential is unlimited, and nobody's coming to save you. And from that moment on, you move different. You speak different. You protect your peace. You delete the distractions. You say no more often. You stop explaining your dreams to people who don't even believe in themselves. And little by little, the world starts to respond to your new frequency, not because it changed, but because you did. The decision to transform is uncomfortable because it confronts everything familiar. But the pain of staying the same will always be greater than the pain of changing. So you pick your pain. You decide which future you're willing to live with, and when a decision is made with real commitment, nothing and no one can stop the growth that follows. The mind is the steering wheel of your life. Where you focus is where you go. Everything begins with your thoughts, because your thoughts become your actions shape your habits, and your habits create your destiny. If your mind is cluttered with fear, doubt, and negativity, then no matter how many good opportunities come your way, you won't recognize them. And even if you do, you won't have the courage to act on them. What you focus on expands. And if your focus is constantly on what's missing, what's wrong, who hurt you, and what you don't have, then your life will keep repeating that same cycle of frustration and lack. But when you shift your focus intentionally, when you start looking at possibilities instead of problems, when you start seeing growth instead of failure, then something powerful begins to happen. Your entire energy shifts. You begin to attract what you are ready for. The same circumstances that used to overwhelm you begin to look like opportunities. That's not because the world changed. It's because you changed the direction of your thinking. You begin to understand that your outer world is only a reflection of your inner world. A cluttered mind creates a chaotic life, and a focused mind builds a powerful future. Most people don't even realize how many hours a day they spend thinking about the past, worrying about the future, comparing themselves to others, doubting their gifts, or obsessing over things they can't control. That's like driving with your eyes glued to the rearview mirror. You're bound to crash. But when you make a conscious effort to take control of your thoughts, you start to steer your life in the direction of your goals. This is why protecting your mind is non-negotiable. You can't just let anything and anyone have access to your mental space. The music you listen to, the conversations you engage in, the voices you follow online, the environments you allow yourself to stay in, all of that shapes your mental focus. You have to be intentional about feeding your mind what aligns with your vision. If you want to grow, you can't keep feeding your mind things that shrink you. You can't keep focusing on what they said or what they did or what didn't go your way. That kind of thinking robs you of energy, clarity, and momentum. You need your mental energy to be focused on solutions, creativity, progress, gratitude, and the next step forward. Every day you wake up, you are faced with a choice. What will I focus on today? Will I focus on what's working or what's missing? Will I focus on who's against me or who's with me? Will I focus on fear or on faith? That choice determines how you feel, how you act, and what results you create. Your life doesn't follow your wishes, your potential, or your dreams. It follows your focus. That's why people with less talent but more focus often go further than people who have all the gifts but no discipline in their mind. Because the one who wins is not always the smartest, strongest, or luckiest. It's the one who refuses to let their thoughts be controlled by chaos and instead takes authority over their mind. Faith without effort is just a wish. You must back your prayers with hard work. Too many people sit around waiting for a miracle, thinking that if they just pray hard enough, things will magically change. But the truth is, faith is not passive. Faith is not sitting still hoping that something good will fall into your lap. Faith is action. Faith is movement. Faith is waking up and doing your part while trusting that God will handle the part you can't control. You can't just talk about what you believe in. You have to show it by how you live, how you hustle, how you stay consistent even when results are slow. It's easy to speak words of hope, but the real test is how you act when nothing around you looks like it's changing. That's where faith comes in. Faith is going to the gym even when you don't see the pounds dropping. Faith is applying for the job even when you've been rejected 10 times. Faith is showing up to your purpose even when nobody is clapping for you. You can't expect a breakthrough if you're not willing to break a sweat. You've got to work like it depends on you and pray like it depends on God. There's no shortcut to success that skips over effort. Even in the Bible, when God parted the Red Sea, Moses still had to stretch out his hand. Even when Jesus healed, someone had to walk, reach, or touch the hem of his garment. God moves when you move. Sitting still, complaining and calling it faith is not going to get you where you want to go. When you really believe in something, it shows in your grind. If you say you have faith but you don't work, what you're really doing is hoping without responsibility. Faith is not magic. It's power guided by action. You can have all the vision in the world, but if you don't put in the time, the sweat, the sacrifice, then all you're left with is daydreams. Dreams are free, but transformation will cost you. And the currency is effort. Sometimes you'll work and not see the fruit right away. And that's where people give up. But faith says, I keep showing up even when it looks like nothing is happening. You keep building the business even when nobody's buying. You keep writing the book even when no one is reading. You keep showing love even when it feels like nobody cares. That kind of consistency, backed by belief, is unstoppable. That's when the universe begins to shift. That's when doors begin to open. But it never happens to the lazy. It never happens to the comfortable. It never happens to the person who thinks wishing and waiting are enough. You can't microwave greatness. You can't shortcut discipline. You have to work it day in and day out, trusting that your faith is fueling every step. And when you combine the grind with belief, when you put effort behind every word you speak, you start seeing things happen that you used to only pray about. Discipline and consistency will take you further than motivation ever could. Motivation is great, but it's not reliable. It comes and goes like the wind. One day you feel fired up, ready to take on the world, and the next day you feel stuck, tired, unbothered, and uninterested. If you rely on motivation alone, you'll quit the moment things get tough, or the results stop too long, or the applause stops. That's why the real winners in life are not the most motivated, they're the most disciplined. They don't wait to feel like doing it. They do it because it needs to be done. They don't rely on excitement, they rely on commitment. Discipline is waking up early when you'd rather sleep in. Discipline is sticking to the plan when distractions try to pull you off course. Discipline is doing what's necessary even when no one's watching and no one's clapping. And when you combine discipline with consistency, you create unstoppable momentum. You show up every day, not once in a while, not just when it's easy, but every single day. That daily repetition builds habits, and habits shape character, and character determines destiny. Consistency means you're not just showing up when you feel good. It means you're showing up when you're tired, when you're stressed, when it's raining, when nobody believes in you, when you failed before, when you've been overlooked, when you feel like quitting. You show up because your future depends on it. The truth is, greatness doesn't live in one big moment. It lives in the small decisions you make daily. It's built in the early mornings, the late nights, the extra reps, the focus hours, the quiet sacrifices. Most people underestimate what they can achieve if they stayed consistent for just 6 months, but they overestimate what motivation can do in one day. That's why people get caught in cycles. They get excited, they start strong, then life hits, and they fall back into old habits. But when you have discipline, you stay in the fight. You stay committed. You stay grounded. You don't let temporary feelings dictate permanent results. You can't build anything meaningful without discipline. You can't become who you're meant to be if you only move when you feel like it. The strongest, most successful people in the world have mastered the art of showing up regardless of their mood. And every time they show up, they gain a little more strength, a little more confidence, a little more proof that they're capable. Over time, that discipline compounds into growth that motivation could never give you. The people at the top didn't get there because they were always inspired. They got there because they were always committed. They had a reason bigger than their excuses. They had a standard they refused to lower, and they kept going brick by brick, step by step, until the results caught up with the work. When you choose discipline and stay consistent, you stop waiting for the right mood and start building the right mindset. You are not a product of your past. You're a product of your decisions today. Too many people carry the weight of who they used to be and let it define who they're becoming. They replay old mistakes, relive old pain, and rehearse old failures until they start believing that the past has the final say. But the truth is, the past can only hold you back if you keep giving it power. Your past may have shaped your story, but it doesn't control your future. Every new day is a fresh opportunity to rewrite the narrative, to take back control, and to make a new decision that shifts everything forward. What you choose today matters more than what you regret from yesterday. You may have been broken, hurt, rejected, overlooked, or even lost, but that doesn't define your worth or your potential. Your identity isn't rooted in your trauma, it's rooted in your choices. You get to decide how your story continues. You get to decide how you show up now, how you think now, how you lead your life from this moment on. The problem is we often let labels from the past stick to us like glue. People called you lazy, so you believed it. Someone told you you'd never make it, so you stopped trying. You failed once, so you convinced yourself success just wasn't for you. But none of that has to be your truth anymore. Those were moments, not definitions. Every champion has a past, and every sinner has a future. What separates the two is not luck, not talent, but a decision. A decision to rise, to heal, to grow, to become. Your decisions hold more power than your history. The decision to forgive instead of holding on to bitterness. The decision to start again instead of giving up. The decision to speak life over yourself instead of repeating the curses of your past. The decision to believe in your worth even if nobody else does. You don't have to wait for the perfect time or perfect version of yourself to move forward. You just have to decide that where you've been is not where you stand. Maybe you didn't come from much. Maybe you messed up a lot. Maybe you're still struggling, but none of that disqualifies you from greatness. In fact, those are often the very ingredients that create the strongest people. Pain sharpens purpose. Struggle builds strength. Setbacks prepare you for comeback, but only if you choose to respond with courage and not self-pity. Only if you stop looking back with regret and start looking forward with intention. The past may whisper lies about who you are, but your daily decisions speak louder. Every choice you make today is a seed planted for tomorrow. The way you think, speak, act, and love today is carving out the path ahead. You don't have to feel ready. You just have to decide you're worth the effort, worth the healing, worth the fight, and start acting like the future belongs to you. God didn't bring you this far to leave you stuck. 7 days can be the beginning of forever. So many people feel trapped in the same cycles, the same struggles, the same disappointments, and they start to wonder if things will ever change. They begin to question their purpose, their worth, and even God's plan for their life. But what they fail to realize is that every breath they still have is proof that the story isn't over. If God was finished with you, you wouldn't still be here. The fact that you woke up today means there's still something for you to do, something to become, something to overcome, something to build. You are not forgotten. You are not being punished. You are being prepared. That delay you're facing might be a setup for development. That season of quiet might be God building strength in your character. And that feeling of being stuck may just be the moment right before your breakthrough. But you've got to believe that where you are is not where you're staying. God didn't bring you this far to let you quit, to let you settle, or to let you stay small. Sometimes we get so focused on how far we still have to go that we forget how far we've already come. You made it through things that should have broken you. You survived pain that others didn't even see. You kept showing up when it would have been easier to give up. That's not weakness, that's strength. That's resilience. That's divine purpose. You were being carried when you didn't even know it. And if you look back with honest eyes, you'll see that even in your worst moments, grace was still holding you. That same grace is still available. The same God that got you through then will carry you through now. But you've got to do your part. You've got to stop rehearsing the pain and start renewing your faith. You've got to stop thinking change takes forever and realize it can start today. 7 days of full commitment can ignite something in you that changes everything. Because God honors movement. He blesses effort. He breathes on faith backed by action. When you start walking, even if you don't see the full path, He'll light up the next step. You can't keep saying you trust God and keep living like you don't. You can't pray for growth and stay in places that keep you small. You can't ask for blessings and keep holding on to the very things that block them. Sometimes the breakthrough isn't waiting on God, it's waiting on you to move, to believe again, to risk again, to show up even when you're scared. God doesn't need perfect people. He needs willing people, adaptable people, people who are tired of living beneath their calling and are ready to do the work it takes to rise. And the truth is, it doesn't take a lifetime to change. It takes a decision, one strong week of intention, 1 week of discipline, 1 week of refusing to be distracted, 1 week of showing up even when no one else claps, 1 week of doing it anyway. If you give God your full heart and your full effort for just 7 days, you will not be the same person at the end of it. Because what starts with obedience can grow into destiny. What starts with focus can evolve into freedom. And what starts with one act of faith can open the door to a life you once thought was impossible. You don't need a perfect plan. You just need a surrendered heart and a willing spirit. Stop looking at how long it's going to take and start looking at how powerful it is to begin. 7 days of faith, 7 days of focus, 7 days of letting go, 7 days of rising up. That's all it takes for a shift to begin, for momentum to build, for God to breathe new life in the dry places and new strength in the tired bones. The next 7 days could be the start of everything you've been praying for. But it won't happen by accident. It will happen because you finally believe that you will work the change and you acted like it.